Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at an assassin item, which could be used on other characters, but it is very specifically an assassin item. It is called the Shadow Dancer Myrmidon Greaves. Now, the Shadow Dancer Myrmidon Greaves are assassins because they have shadow disciplines on them. It's pretty obvious. And although they are usable by other classes, I feel like the assassin is the one that gets the biggest benefit out of these. We have a defense of 144, which is pretty nice, a strength requirement of 167, which is not nice, and a level requirement of 71. Now, granted, these actually have a lower strength requirement than they would otherwise because they have a negative 20% requirements on them, which is definitely nice. They have plus 1 to 2 to shadow disciplines. It does vary between 1 and 2. So if you find a pair of these that is only plus 1, it might not be something that they are specifically looking to wear. But assassins can use these specifically when they have the plus 2 on them. I feel like they're decent enough that kick assassins will choose these. Although there is another option, and we'll talk about that later. The 30% faster roam walk is nice. The 30% faster hit recovery is very nice. Definitely nice to be able to run fast, and definitely nice to be able to recover faster from those faster hit recovery stuns that will occur. We also have 100% enhanced defense, which does vary between 70 to 100%. We have a 25 bonus to dexterity, which does vary between 15 to 25, which is actually going to be really nice if you're blocking on an assassin, or if you're trying to reach the dexterity amount to use specific claws. This can be handy for that. The negative 20% requirement, of course, is very, very welcome because the Myrmidon Greaves tend to have an extremely high amount of strength. And it is important to note that assassins in particular have a mechanic very similar to Smite Paladins, which is only they can see the kick damage on an item. So as you can see, the kick damage on Myrmidon Greaves is 83 to 149, which is extremely high. These are actually the highest damage kick boots in the game, with only one real exception, and that is the Gore Rider Myrmidon Greaves. These have to be upped. And when the Gore Rider Myrmidon Greaves are upped, they have the same amount of kick damage as the Shadow Dancers. And remember I said we were going to talk about the alternatives. Well, the Gore Rider Myrmidon Greaves are an alternative to a kick assassin who is looking for that high damage, which is definitely nice to have. And they also have other effects like Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, Open Wounds, and so forth and so on, which is very, very nice. They also have negative requirements on them, which they have more negative requirements than the Shadow Dancers. So we're looking at 156 strength instead. And really you have to kind of gauge whether or not you need the Crushing Blow, the Deadly Strike, and the Open Wounds versus the plus 2 Shadow Disciplines, the faster recovery, the Dex, etc. I feel like when it comes to kick assassins, it pretty much comes down between these boots, and I have heard many people say it is most definitely the Gore Rider Myrmidon Greaves, and some people say it is most definitely the Shadow Dancer Myrmidon Greaves, and there seems to be a nice divide between the community as far as which one is considered the better of the two. Now keep in mind that on an assassin, plus 2 Shadow Disciplines is going to give you some nice effects. It's going to give you plus 2 to your Mind Blast, plus 2 to your Cloak of Shadows, plus 2 to your Psychic Hammer. Mind Blast kind of usurps Psychic Hammer. But plus 2 to your Claw Mastery, plus 2 to your Weapon Block, plus 2 to your Shadow Warrior or Shadow Master if you use those, plus 2 to your Venom, and also plus 2 to your Burst of Speed or Fade, whichever one you have chosen for your Assassin. So, plus 2 to Shadow Disciplines is not a paltry thing and has to be weighed against the very nice effects on the Gore Riders. I feel like a lot of assassins look at these two boots and they think about, what specifically their build requires. Because, if you are a trap assassin, you might not necessarily care about Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, and Open Wounds. And so you'd probably be leaning more towards Shadow Dancers. Whereas if you were a kick assassin, you would probably be looking more toward that Crushing Blow and the Open Wounds and things. If you were a martial arts assassin, You might be looking more toward some of these things. A Blade Fury assassin might get better use out of the Shadow Dancers versus the Gore Riders, but it really depends. It depends on what their other equipment is. And that's also a thing. If you've got plenty of Deadly Strike and plenty of Crushing Blow and plenty of open wounds coming from your other pieces of equipment, then what do you need the Gore Riders for? Because if we take away the Crushing Blow, the Deadly Strike, and the open wounds, what do the Gore Riders have left? They don't really have a lot. Whereas the Shadow Dancers have those Shadow Disciplines. Now, of course, if you were an assassin that does not build Shadow Disciplines, maybe you've got very minimal points in your Shadow Disciplines, and you're not really even bothering with a lot of this stuff. Maybe you've got Burst of Speed, and that's about it. In that case, the Shadow Dancers are not going to look very appetizing to you, and that's really all there is to it. There's really not a lot more to say about the Shadow Dancer Greaves. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what else there is to say. I guess one thing I haven't touched on is PvP, so very specifically. Shadow Dancers, I think, are probably the better choice for PvP, specifically because of the Dex, which is going to give you better blocking, and the faster hit recovery, which of course is going to make it a lot easier for you to recover from any hits that you might take. The Shadow Disciplines, of course, is also going to come in handy because Mind Blast tends to be very used in PvP, so you'll get more points to your Mind Blast, which will help out a little bit. And I think that's really what it comes down to is are you specifically using these items for the correct characters? Like a Whirlwind Assassin would probably do better with the Shadow Dancers, whereas a Kixin, who's primarily functioning in PvP, or sorry, PvE, might be more inclined to the Gore Riders. And it's funny because when I go over the Gore Riders, I'm going to have to do this all over again. I'm dying. I'm slowly dying. I just feel like there's not a lot to say on these, and it really comes down to a matter of personal choice. What specifically your assassin is doing, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, so I'm going to end it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and I guess the one thing I forgot to point out is where to find this item. So before I finish, let's talk about where to find this item. So Shadow Dancers. Shadow Dancers. They are level 79 on the Q level, and they are in the TC 87 class, which means that they're only going to drop from places like the Pit from elites, or the Ancient Tunnels from elites, or Bale. Probably Hell Diablo will drop them too. They're relatively rare items that are only going to drop in relatively high level zones from relatively high level monsters. So keep that in mind. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.